Good morning and welcome to Atheist Torah Study. My name is Emma and I'm the host. Atheist Torah Study is a year-long exploration of the Torah from the perspective of an atheist Jew. Um, just as a reminder, the Torah is the first five books of the Christian Bible. For Jews, it's just the Torah. That's like a book that we read. And it's Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. So again, for Christians, that's the Old Testament, but for Jews, it's the Torah. And then Jews have a lot more in the Torah too. A lot of stuff overlaps between the what's called the Old Testament in Christian and the Tanakh in Jewish. They're kind of a lot of them are very similar. Anyways, I'm an atheist. I've been an atheist since I was about 18 years old. I realized that God doesn't exist and the universe is just everything is just as it is. We live on a ball, the earth is round, gravity is real. Uh, we all get reproduced through DNA, and it's kind of a fluke that we exist. We have these really complex brains. We don't really know exactly why we evolved consciousness the way that we do and why other animals didn't. But to me, reality starts by acknowledging that you're an animal and that you come from other animals and there is no God, because if there was a God, like the God would be really visible. We'd see the God and the God would be around and we wouldn't have to write long stories about the God. And it's like, it's just I don't know. I mean, I don't know why I believed it when I did. I guess I was afraid of death. I think that was mostly it. I was afraid of death. I was afraid of the implications of being mortal. I mean, and I don't know. I mean, I think all animals are, well, I don't know. All animals have an instinctive fear that's probably, it's probably just programmed into our evolutionary nature. So maybe religion is a function of that. I don't know. I mean, but over time, religion has become very complicated. It's moved from the animal, from like really specific kind of animal, um, like animal experiences. Like, we have these animal experiences that are just part of our basic nature. All animals have them and we have them. And I think that for a long time, religion was sort of like this animal response to the world. I mean, it was with the sophisticated kind of brains that we have, it was an animal response with that kind of sophistication. And over time it evolved though. It's like we kept on having the same kind of animalistic responses to the universe, to nature, to our own sense of awareness. I mean, something in our brains was clicking and coming together, and it was this incredible awareness. And I mean, in a way, we've kind of created sort of a heaven on earth. I mean, really, I think that the world in which we live now is like so much more stable and secure and organized and planned than when we were wandering around out in the although I mean those people had a really good life too, no doubt about it. They also had a good life. So I mean, I'm not trying to say that somehow things are better now. I think that things were very good for a lot of people back then, but they were also really hard. There was a lot of suffering. And I mean, what is religion? What is religion? I don't know. Religion is an attempt by people to put language to their experiences of consciousness. I mean, I think religion is fundamentally an existential act. That's I'm really convinced about that. Anyways, so we're gonna get and so what but one of the okay, so one of the things about Judaism, it's really cool. It makes Judaism really distinct. It's not just Judaism. I mean, it's other traditions too, but one of the things that makes Judaism really distinct is that Judaism, like, it preserves its texts, and it kind of acknowledges like that people in the past have been doing things to create the world. And this was like a good starting off point. I mean, the world is a mystery. Like here's kind of how I see, if I looked at Judaism and I thought it was like really interesting, I'd be like, the world is a mystery. We don't really know what's happening. We don't know exactly why we exist. It's it's really interesting that we do, and we're really lucky if we exist and have enough time to develop consciousness. That's really great, but we don't really know why. It's just something we just kind of get. It's like, I don't know. I mean, the way that I look at it is like it's sort of like a perk of the universe almost. I mean, when you think about it, I mean, the universe is almost entirely empty space, and it's this void. And most of the universe is, I mean, like when you think about the other planets, like Mars is completely uninhabitable, Venus is uninhabitable, Mercury, and these are like places that we're lucky enough to form planets. In between all of that is just, you know, just almost, well, it's not emptiness. I mean, it's all important. Everything in the universe is important. But the universe didn't like come into existence to create us. We're like, we're this like random quirky byproduct of like, I mean, so we live on a planet where the conditions were really good for life. And, maybe life is something that actually can form, at least sometimes in the, well, we don't really know yet because we don't know of any other life in the universe because the universe is so big. But it'll be really interesting if we ever get a signal from another species. I mean, I don't know, like part of me kind of wonders like if we got a signal from another species, like how do we know whether we've actually gotten it or not? I mean, I hope that we do. Anyways, I'm just going off the rails. I'm kind of starting big picture, and then I'm just kind of wandering around, not saying anything very interesting, which is pretty typical of me. So this is a pretty normal video for me to just kind of wander around and not really say anything and just kind of blather on. So that's why I'm doing it, to entertain myself. All right, so let's get into the Parsha. This is Parsha Devarim. This is the book of Deuteronomy. Let's see, I looked up some stats about it. Okay, this is Parsha number 44 of 54. I I'm off track. I'm off cycle. Like I'm 3 weeks behind on my Parshas. So everybody else is already at Parsha number 45, 46, and I'm still Parsha number 44. So I'm definitely running behind schedule with the annual cycle of Parsha readings, but that's just where I am. I'm gonna try to catch up this week. Anyways, so this is Parsha number 44 of 54. It's Parsha Devarim. It means words. Deuteronomy, it means words. Some of the major key events in this Parsha are Moses begins his farewell speech. He reviews the appointment of judges. He talks again about the sin of the spies. He summarizes Israel's 40 years in the wilderness. He talks about the defeat of King Sihon, the defeat of King Og of Bashan. He talks about the apportionment of the land. And um, he talks about God's refusal to let him into the promised land. So that's kind of what's going on here. Let's see, anything else I want to share before we start reading? It's his farewell address. He's forbidden to enter. I think we'll actually start near the end of the Parsha with Moses is forbidden to enter Canaan. Because it's a really interesting. Maybe I'll read like no, I think I want to start there anyways. So yeah, we'll start there. It's num Deuteronomy chapter 3 verses 21 to 29. Yeah, I think I want to start there. So let me just go ahead and find that really quick. Let's see here. Meantime, I'll just continue talking. I'm sitting on my front porch today. It's a beautiful morning, and I live on a noisy street, so you hear a lot of street noise going by, but it's just beautiful. It's right before dawn. It's absolutely gorgeous. I just love sitting on my front porch, especially in the summertime. So let's see here. And this is very informal. I've been looking at the view count for my videos, and the average view count is either 0 or 1. So I think that a lot of times I'm the one because I watch it again. I don't watch the whole thing. I just watch it just to see if it worked out. And so there's not a really high view count on this. There's just not a lot of demand in the universe for atheist Torah commentary. It's just not a thing. But gosh, it sure is interesting to me. Okay, so here goes. Here's Moses. This is Moses talking about um how he can't go into this is God telling Moses that he doesn't get to go into the promised land. And so we'll kind of start there and see how I can turn that into atheist Torah study. Oh, sorry. Verse 21. So this is Deuteronomy verse uh chapter 3 verse 20. Oh, oh no. Oh no, I don't want to start there. Oh, I thought. Oh, you know what? I'm gonna have to wait till next week when we get to Vik Anand to talk about that. That's too bad. That's really what I wanted to talk about, but I'm gonna have to wait till next week because that is actually the very end of the Parsha. And it's actually the start of next week's Parsha. So I'll save that for next week, even though it's definitely the best part. So I'll tell you what, we'll talk about the sin of the spies and the people's fear. That's not a bad place. There's a lot of good atheist commentary there. So we'll start there. Let's see, what is that? That is Deuteronomy chapter 1 verses 19 to 46. Okay, that'll be easy then. So we'll start there. So the way that the commentaries on Devarim go is that basically every commentary and every Torah study I've ever read talks about how the book of Devarim is it's well so to understand it in Jewish tradition, the book of Devarim is sort of like it's the beginning of Torah commentary because Moses is commenting on the past. And so it's also kind of understood as a literary construction, a really interesting literary construction. And it may have been unique writing for its time. I mean, whenever it was written, it was definitely written by the third century BC. So I don't know enough about ancient literature to know what other kinds of literature offer the sort of psychological introspection that Devarim does, but I mean, there's other places in the Torah where it kind of gets into a little bit of psychological infrastructure. It begins to examine the psychology of the character. But Devarim is like the entire book is an exploration of Moses's character. It's really about Moses's brain, like how he experiences the world. And in that sense, I mean, my own personal feeling is that Moses is basically the mind of the redactor. It's like whoever the redactor was, I mean, there was more than one. It's like, but for this particular portion of the Torah, like whoever the redactors were, this is kind of like they workshopped out the mindset of their character, and they really wanted to give a really good character, like somebody who was really believable. And so they began to ask questions about the state of mind, the state of consciousness of that character. And they gave him a lot of, I mean, any writer does this already, like so right now it's 2026. And this summer there's a big run of the Odyssey, which is Homer's Odyssey. And, I mean, Homer had to do that. I mean, he did that when he did his writing. Or it wasn't necessarily Homer. Homer was actually uh again, well, it's unattributed. I mean, but it's similar. If I had time, I'd look this up right now, but I'm not going to. Um, the point is just that the what is the point? I don't know. I've already lost my point. The point is that I mean, the character of Moses, I mean, as a character, he's a literary Moses is a literary construction. Everything in the Torah is literary construction. Everything in the Bible is literary construction. The New Testament, it's a literary construction. Jesus is a literary construction. These are these are characters. They were written by people. These are stories written by people. It's no different than any other story anybody ever wrote. The only difference with these stories is that they just got preserved. They got written down and preserved because they had a certain kind of magic to them. They had a psychology to them. And the psychology of the story became an important psychology of the people. The people repeated the story. The story imprinted on them. I mean, the people became the story. And here's where the story is getting workshopped. The story is getting workshopped here. It's just like with all of these religions, they have their source text, and the text becomes like a blueprint for how to have a story about the world. And that's what it is. It's a story about the world, and it kind of runs parallel to people's actual existence and what they really do. I mean, there's another story, there's another script, and that's evolution. And evolution pretty much drives you. It's just you're you're almost locked into evolution. Like it's almost impossible to reorient the script. But you can do it. I mean, you can definitely do it if you know what the script is. Evolution has a script. But I mean, you can work around it if you know what it is. But you also have a script from your culture, Well, you have a whole bunch of scripts, but this one's written down and it became, I mean, I think that it's like I just keep on returning to my central thesis, which I think I've come to out of creating a year of atheist Torah commentary. I mean, I'm just convinced that like the Torah is the product of the Hasmonean era. It's the product of a religious nationalism, and it was the effort of a religious nationalism to create a unique codified script that would govern like a culture that would kind of become like the the framework, the architecture for a culture. And so that's kind of what Devarim was. I mean, that's what the Torah was. And I mean, it's a way of writing language that's been reproduced many times since. I mean, I think most notably in the West, it's really been successfully reproduced with, with Christianity and with Islam and maybe a few other small religions that followed afterwards, but those were the really big ones. And they all kind of followed the same pattern of like having a sacred text, a source text that was kind of workshopped by a bunch of writers and this is what they came up with. So um the Torah, once you really look at it, it's really interesting though, because it's like it's a box within a box, And but the point of the whole point of this, what I'm trying to get at is that the writing is really interesting from the very beginning. The writing, it starts off with good writing. So Genesis, that's a great start, and but it's not all good writing. I mean, there's a lot of parts of the Torah that are just like so mind-numbingly. But this part is sort of interesting because it's like here the writers were imagining their character. They were really trying out some new tricks with writing, some new ways of imagining their character. They didn't have the kind of freedom or input. I mean, they were doing something very specific. This writing is intended to produce results. It's writing that has a very specific intention. So but it's like you have to imagine that there's somebody on the other end of this pipeline going back in history who wrote this, who had an intention, even if this is put together as a collection of intentions. It had a point in history, it had a point in time when it congealed. It congealed into something that somebody thought was good enough to put down in writing and to reproduce and to tell other people. So it just, it had enough to be a hit, basically. And that's what it did. And it turned out it was a big hit, it was a big hit. So, unfortunately, it doesn't really explain anything about the world. I mean, it doesn't really, I wish it helped. It's like people look at this and they think, oh, well, it's God. So it's got to help, because this is God. It's like everything in here is supposed to be God. And it's like, what are people imagining God is? That's the writing. The writing is they've already imagined that there's another character in the book. There's a character. We don't know who the character is, but we know that the character exists. And somehow the character is all knowing, and the character is all powerful, and the character can solve our problems. The character can deliver us victory, uh, can create justice. The character knows moral laws. The character can see you. So, I mean, for a lot of people, I think the character is, I don't know, probably a fantasy version of their parents, I mean, some kind of an authority figure. It's like that's probably what the character is. The character in the story is an authority figure, but it's like the ultimate authority figure. It's not just like your parents, teaching you how to, you know, use the toilet or how to eat or speak. It's I mean, although when you're completely helpless, your parents really are kind of gods to you, because they kind of do everything and they're pretty much if you live, it's because your parents, fed you or no, it doesn't have to be your parents, just somebody took care of you because we're kind of helpless. for quite a while. So, maybe this is a fantasy version of like the ultimate parent. It's like this, it's like we never stop feeling like we have those needs. It's like we're born and I mean, even after we get all of that stuff, even after people have gotten ultimate powers. The people don't get ultimate powers. That's just ridiculous. After they get social power, that's what people think is ultimate power. They still have wants and needs. They still feel like babies. I mean, they're still struggling to find meaning in the universe, and so they turn to their gods. Not I mean, I wonder. One thing I do wonder about is like I wonder how much of this writing, like the people who wrote, like how much of it they actually believed. I'm really curious about that. Like, did the people who did the writing 2,300 years ago, did they believe what they were writing? You know, it's an interesting question to me. Did they believe what they were writing? Because I don't know if they did or not. Anyways, let's read some of it. So this is the character of Moses, and he's basically talking about the past, and the whole book is an exploration of like Moses' brain. It's like he's going on this long journey. He's about to die, so it's like, and it's really cool. Like one of the things I love about this is that it gives so much lip service, so much respect to the end of your life. It doesn't really, I mean, the beginning of Moses' life is interesting, his formation, it's interesting, his journeys around in the wilderness. It's like, the Torah, it's really the book, the whole Torah, it's really about Moses. It really comes down to Moses. It's like, Moses is like the central character. And by the time you get to the end of the Torah, it's like, the Torah is really about Moses. It's like, you have all of these ancillary characters, the people, you have God. God's in there too. I mean, the Torah is supposed to be about God and God's relationship with the people, but really the Torah really it's about Moses because it ends with Moses. I mean, Moses is like this is his big long speech. He just talks forever. He gives like a 7 hour Castro speech. This is like Castro, you know, the dictator of Cuba, the leader of the revolution. Castro used to get up before the assembly and it would like everybody had to watch TV and he would give like 7 hour speeches. He'd just go on and on and on forever, talk about everything. And that's what Moses is doing here. He anyways. So it's like the Torah, it's really about Moses. It's like, but it's not about Moses. It's about the redactors. It's about the Hasmoneans and everybody else who's ever taken the place of a Hasmonean in the world. This is about that person. And this is Moses' swan song. And in the process of Moses telling his swan song, he's telling the whole history of the people again. He's telling it again. And so one of the things the commentators talk about is they talk about how when he's telling the story again, he's kind of changing it. Like he's remembering things differently, he's telling the story differently. And, you know, I mean, I understand this. So this is Atheist Torah Study, so I can be as blasphemous as I want. So, so the people who really believe this, like, is the word of God, think that this is the infallible word of God. And so what Moses is doing is he's he's in touch with the divine. He's like the most holy person and he's in touch with the divine and he's kind of like experiencing this kind of universal consciousness like he's almost becoming like God himself for a little while. Not with the powers of God, but with the insight of God. Like somehow he's able to rise up into this space where he collectively experiences and collectively understands his his life, purpose of his life, the the people, their destiny. It's like he can sort of see everything. He can see the past, he can see the future, he can see the present. And he's experiencing this grand mystical moment, you know, and then he dies. It's the ultimate ending. It's it's the story of his life, and it's like he's telling the story because he's gonna die, and this is his way of giving meaning to the world. And so by reading this, like what people have done for, hundreds and thousands of years since then, is they read into this story their story, you know, and that's one of the things that religion does. But people read into this story their story. They become the religion. The religion is them pushing this story out into the world. It's their story. And so it makes a good story. I mean, on an existential level, you could say, well, somebody had to make some story about something. So this was their story. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if people needed to make a story about something, though. People lived for hundreds of thousands of years, with all kinds of stories. And people live all over the world with lots of different stories. So this is just one story, but it's a story that some people have really chosen to value, and they have really clung to it as a story, and it's carried them through existence, and that's not a bad thing. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with living your life for a story. I mean, I can think of much worse things to live your life for than a story, you know. But it's like, and I mean, it's not just this story, like the other religions, the people have lived their lives for those stories too. Um, I mean, I'm not against it. I mean, I think that I'm not sure like exactly how it is that people come from those stories to atheism. I mean, for me, it was just a result of just looking at the world, and I mean, just being like, oh, well, the story's not true. I mean, it's like I kind of think, well, how could I have ever thought that the story was true? You know, but the reason that I was so caught up in the story was because uh, it it has these ways of moving with your psychology that are really interesting. I mean, it really does. It's like uh, it's profoundly existential. I mean, religion is very, very existential. And I just don't think that we atheists like give it enough credit for how foundationally existential religion is. It's really deeply rooted in our psyche, because it just connects with, oh, I don't know, it connects with our existential sense of awareness. I mean, we have this foundational existential sense of consciousness that kind of guides our lives from one moment to the next. And most people also, I don't know, it's not enough to just know that you're an animal and that you exist and you're kind of moving around in the world. We have this kind of inner purpose. It's like I wish I knew more brain things, like how to talk about brains and how brains work, because I don't really know anything about the brain. But I mean, there's a part of your brain that like kind of organizes everything and sort of gives you that sense of direction, every day, like how to organize yourself and relationship to your environment and what to do and how to get from one task to the next, you know. And it's like that's kind of that that sense of awareness is kind of where religion is. It's in that part of the brain, and somehow these texts, this language, this idea of God, it connects directly with that. I mean, it connects directly with your sense of awareness. And then it also, you know, it becomes an overlay for like all of the other relationships in your life. So there's a lot to religion. I mean, it's when you really unpack it, it's like it's this it's this thread. It's like a thread that weaves together people who would otherwise be strangers. It's very much Yuval Harari's idea in Sapiens. I mean, I think Yuval Harari really penned it really well. You know, religion is just it's like this currency. It's something that we need as a species. You know, we there's I don't know. I'm gonna tentatively say it's something that we need as a species. I don't really know if that's absolutely true or not, but I'm just gonna say it is for now. Anyways, let's read some text. Okay, so here goes. So here's Moses. He's talking to the people, and he says, let's see. Well, first he talks about judgment. Then he says, um, hang on just a minute. So I'm going to pause for just a minute. Okay. So here's Deuteronomy chapter 1, verse 19. I'm just going to start reading. We set out from Horeb and traveled the great and terrible wilderness that you saw. Along the road to the hill country of the Amorites, the Eternal, our God, had commanded us. We reached Kadesh Barnea. I said to you, you have gone to the hill country of the Amorites that the Eternal, our God, is giving us. See, the Eternal, your God, has placed the land at your disposal. Go up, take possession, as the Eternal, the God of your fathers, promised you. Fear not and be dismayed. Be not dismayed. So, I mean, here it's getting to a recurring theme that's in the text. It's like the promise of the land. So, part of what's going on here is that the people believe that the land belongs to them because the God has promised it to them. And, you know, I mean, it's a way of kind of reinforcing a sense of um identification with the land. I mean, who does the land belong to? How do people decide who gets to use the land? It's a problem. You know, it was really a problem in the Levant in the Bronze Age. I mean, a lot of what drove empire was people like one empire after another coming around and taking other people's land. And the Levant was like just this place of continuous warfare, you know, where, and especially, I mean, especially where this part of the world is, I guess it just because it was on the Mediterranean and it was kind of like a route between, between Asia Minor and Europe and between people traveling along the coast. I mean, it was a path that a lot of people came over, and so I mean, but all the land was back then. You know, people were constantly running over each other, taking things, and so there's a lot of insecurity around who the land belongs to, who gets to have the land. So, you know, that's really a thing. Anyways, um, so let's keep on going. Then all of you came back to me and said, let us send agents ahead to reconnoiter the land for us and bring back word on the route we shall follow and the cities we shall come to. I approved of the plan, and so I selected 12 of you, one representative from each tribe. They made for the hill country, came to the Wadi Escol, and I spied it out. They took some fruit of the land with them and brought it down to us, and they gave us this report. It is a good land that the eternal our God is giving to us. Yet you refused to go up and flouted the command of the eternal your God. You sulked in your tents and said, it is out of hatred for us that God brought us out of the land of Egypt to hand us over to the Amorites to wipe us out. What kind of place are we going to? Our brothers have taken the heart out of us, saying, we saw a people stronger and taller than we, large cities with walls sky high, even Anakites. So in this part of the story, they're basically trying to talk about how the people were afraid and they thought that the land. So I mean, you can't read Deuteronomy, especially any parts about this, without also thinking about how things are now. Well, now is now. Like right now, while I'm reading this is now, but in the future it may be different. But right now we live in this world where, this is still what's normal. I mean, this idea of like, so I mean, think about the ethics of what's going on here. What's going on here is there's some people and they want some land, and there's other people who live in the land. And so the text, it doesn't acknowledge that those people are there. It doesn't acknowledge their existence or their feelings or their emotions or their rights. It doesn't acknowledge their relationships. It just it's just totally focused on Moses and these people and what they want. And that somehow they'll get what they want and take it away from somebody else, basically. If they just believe in this God. So if they have faith in this non-entity, then somehow they'll get what they want. And that's a terrible story. It's terrible. I mean, when you don't acknowledge the needs that somebody else has. And there has to be a compromise text somewhere. There has to be a text where like it talks in great detail about, I mean, how do you actually create social situations that work for everybody involved? How can you have something without taking it from somebody else? You know, and I think that that's a question not just about this particular aspect. This is like, so if there was anything in this text that was sacred, I mean, I think that maybe the part that's sacred is like this is the starting point for actually writing that text and for having those conversations. Like, in a way, I think that like all of the religious texts that we've been looking at, like throughout, is this recording? Sorry. Oh yeah, it's recording. Sorry. I didn't know if it was recording or not. Um, I mean, I think that in some ways, I think that the point of this text is really it's like if you just read the text and you stop here, like you just don't get it at all. You really don't get it. I mean, you should be looking at this text and saying, I totally disagree with this. You know, why isn't why isn't Moses trying to figure out, like, rather than going into the land and conquering it and believing that God's telling him to do it, why isn't Moses like figuring out how to like say, oh, hey, we'd like to come into your land and we'd like to work with you and benefit you and benefit your community. And let's figure out how we can work together, you know? Or how can we create a system that makes it really easy for people to come into the land and to make it better? You know, I mean, this is so like right now, this is another thing that's happening right now in this country. There's this kind of vilification of immigrants, people who are coming into the land. There's there's a vilification of people who are coming into the land as if somehow they're strangers and they don't belong. I mean, and it's kind of ironic in lots of ways. I mean, the first way that's ironic is that basically everybody who's in this country except for Native Americans, was a stranger to the land. And honestly, even going back 23,000 years, even Native American people were strangers to the land. And I mean, I'm not trying to like, I mean, I, I, this doesn't sound very, very nice to say, but I mean, people probably came across this continent, following the megafauna. And the people who came here were probably, wiping out all kinds of species on their way into this part of the land. So they were already disrupting the basic cycles of nature with the kind of collective violence that like we basically bring to every place we go. There's this collective violence that our species takes with us wherever we travel to, and they probably brought that with them here. You know, not to say that whatever white European people did, thousands of years later was justified, because it wasn't. It was much more awful and completely unforgivable. You know, I mean, what white people did coming into this country was completely unforgivable. And, that's part of the story. And this is the story too. And it's like, I mean, if you really want to think about what's sacred about the story, you should say, okay, well, the story isn't the sacred part. The sacred part is looking at the story and kind of deconstructing it. I mean, so if you deconstruct the story and if you deconstruct the story and really look at it in context and kind of analyze it, then you can really start to ask yourselves questions. And really, that's the part that's sacred. That's the part that's really really interesting, because you have to ask yourself questions like, why isn't Moses trying to negotiate with his neighbors? I mean, it's terrible that, I mean, Moses definitely has the moral, I mean, he's got the moral thing. He's definitely has the moral thing because he liberated the slaves, so it was a heroic act of revolutionary, organizing to liberate the slaves. And so the God, the force that was the liberator of the slaves, is a force for good, is a projection of something positive. But then it kind of goes downhill from there. It's like the moment of the liberation, the moment of like looking at something, that anticipation, that's like the high point. And then everything that happens after that, it kind of goes downhill from there. It's like people have this collective sense of unity, but then they don't know how to, but they do. Obviously, people instinctively know how to create a fair situation. And it's just like with immigration. I mean, people come here to this country, they immigrate, they just live their nice, normal lives. I mean, they go and get jobs, they work, they do the same thing that everybody else does. The thing that's unique about this country, nowadays, is that in this country, up until very recently, you could come to this country. I mean, it didn't matter if you were an immigrant who was here legally or not. You could come to this country and be a productive member of the community. And, for me, that's what I think it should always be. It should always be like, I mean, why can't we just have a situation where people come here, they participate, if they want to earn money and send it home, if they want to have a family, if they want to have a trade, whatever they want to do, just let them do it. There's plenty of room in this country. I mean, I don't know if you've ever looked at America, but it's mostly empty space. There's plenty of resources. There's just no reason to put up all these barriers. I mean, we could probably take in tens of millions of people. We have this nice, normal, stable base. It's like a nice, solid, stable economy. And it's like it's a good place because we have good practices. We have good practices because we have a long tradition of having a lot of liberties, being very generous. People have a lot of privacy. It's just there's a lot of things that have just come together. I mean, and I'm not saying that they came together in a good way. They didn't. They came together in a bad way. It came together on the backs of slavery. It came together on the backs of land theft. You know, it came together um, on the backs of a certain kind of colonialism, no doubt about it. And it's held together right now through this, chain of fear. I mean, the reason that there is this kind of stability is because of the overwhelming kind of military power and sense of fear that that projects in other places, So the rules haven't changed. It's like the same things you see here in the Bible and the Torah and the Tanakh. Like nothing's changed about the civilization. It's just the weapons have gotten bigger, the threats, the fears, the violence have gotten more horrifying. But, people have also changed. They've gotten more educated. Um, we're using the tools of democracy most of the time to really improve the collective situation of our society. And we've created, at least here in the West, I mean, we've created these societies that are just really enviable. People really want to come and live here because they have something really stable and they have a lifestyle that makes them feel good. It makes them feel good about who they are and where they live, and they're happy. And that's what we want for everyone in the world. That's what religion should want. It should want for everybody to be happy. And there's already enough suffering. I mean, death provides all the suffering you need. You don't need more suffering than death. Death is when you die and everything's done. But until then, you should have as much happiness as you can possibly have and try to bring as much joy and meaning to your life and to the lives of people around you as is possible. That's what religion should do, or civilization. It doesn't matter who does it, just one of those things should do it. It's a big world. It's a big, thrilling, exciting world. There's so much to learn, there's so much to see, there's so much to experience. And you can experience this world any way you want. You can you you can go anywhere, you can do anything, you can see anything. You can have as many relations as you want with as many people as you want. You can try anything and it's amazing. And you can learn about almost anything that it's possible to learn about. It's an amazing world. And you're so lucky if you exist and have a chance to be aware of it. So that's it. That's all I've got for today. Thanks for listening to Atheist Torah Study. My name is Emma, and I really appreciate the time. Uh, I think that's all I've got. I'll see you. I'll actually be back here in a couple of days because I'm trying to catch up on these parshas. I have two more parshas to get through. I have a feeling that they're not. I feel like I'm not being as intellectual and as I haven't done as much study for these parshas as I should, and so I'm kind of like talking more off the cuff. But I'm really enjoying myself a lot. This has been a great learning experience for me. And I guess this is my own Deuteronomy. Like this whole atheist Torah study is like my own personal Devarim. It's like for me, I do this. This is like the result of, I mean, I spent 10 years studying the Torah and I really enjoyed it. I mean, I've done a whole bunch of the different roles in the community. I mean, I did a whole bunch of different roles and I've learned like all the different kind of ways that I can sort of try to understand the Torah, except I never really learned Hebrew, but I don't think I'm gonna learn Hebrew. I'm not very good with languages. So I've done all the other things. And this is kind of like me after 10 years doing it. This is like my own personal book of Deuteronomy, this whole atheist Torah study. So thanks so much. And I'll see you next time if you happen to be paying attention.